Check this out, Halloween 3. Did you know that Halloween 3, this movie came out 40 years ago this year? It just dawned on me. I didn't even realize that. I saw Halloween Ends the other night. And, after seeing it, seeing how different it is, it dawned on me, this was the first time in 40 years that the franchise had veered off this far. People have compared this to like Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. What are other movies that, I guess Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 would be the only one I can think of that, ventured out kind of far, but it still was a Myers movie. So Halloween Ends definitely took some major risks. And so it just made me appreciate this movie. So anyway, we're going to do all the spoilers for Halloween Ends. Let's go. What's up, guys? Welcome to all the spoilers for Halloween Ends. Halloween Ends is streaming on Peacock right now as we speak. I think it just debuted on there, I think like maybe an hour ago. But yeah, I was talking about Halloween 3, and on Twitter I posted that I guarantee you in years to come, Halloween Ends will be, it'll have a cult following, okay? I don't want to say cult classic. I think there's a difference between cult classic and it'll have a cult following. Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 has a cult following, but I don't think it's a cult classic. So maybe you agree with me on that. But I think Halloween 3 is a cult classic, okay? I don't know if Halloween Ends will be a cult classic, but it will definitely have a cult following just because of how unique it is. And it's the first time in exactly 40 years, I'm sure that was intentional, that a movie in the franchise has veered off that far. And if you think back to the other franchises, like Friday, you had Part 5. Hell, you even had Jason Goes to Hell. Both those movies ventured out. Part 5 had a copycat killer. This one has a copycat killer. But this is the first one to actually have a copycat killer joining forces kind of with Myers himself. It was like Myers was the teacher and he was the student, I guess. Sort of, I don't know. But I'm looking forward to diving into this. This is a very unique movie, and it's so unique and so weird that when I came out of it, I liked it a lot, but I couldn't really place it amongst the other 12 movies as far as where would I rank this movie. But I think I have that figured out, and it will be in the ranking. I'm gonna do a new ranking for this movie. But we'll let Halloween 3 rest back there, maybe let it marinate a little bit. We're celebrating it, kind of, right? And we're gonna talk about all the spoilers for Halloween Ends. What am I doing with my arm? You know what? And I don't like doing these chronologically because then you kind of know what's coming. So I thought, you know what? I did tell you in my spoiler-free review that there was one thing that I really didn't like about this movie. And you know what? Let's start with that. Let's start with the cons, okay? Let's rip the Band-Aid right off and talk about that ending with Laurie Strode versus Michael Myers. All this had been built up to this moment, right? In all actuality, it felt like that scene was kind of shoehorned at the end of a very different movie. They had 4 different writers for this movie. So I'm wondering when they were putting this whole thing together, maybe that was a tough thing to do. How are we going to get Laurie Strode and Michael Myers to have one final fight? And I stated that it's a scene that I don't really like, and one is that it was short, but 2, really the big thing is predictability. I had a feeling that Jamie Lee Curtis might have had a hand in that. Now I don't know. Okay, I'm just speculating, but it feels kind of like a selfish ending. Like, okay, this is Laurie Strode's last hurrah, and we want her to win, but not only do we want her to win, but we want to throw him in a fucking meat grinder. To be fair, a lot of people in the audience liked it. They clapped. When Allison said, no, we're not done yet, and they tied him under the car, and then they're going down the street, I almost hoped that Scott Howard from Teen Wolf would have jumped up there and did the Surfing USA dance on top of it, did a backflip and everything, and then he just undid the ropes, and Myers comes out, and he just slays everybody like he did at the end of Halloween Kills. And he takes Laurie, and he just tosses her in the meat grinder as they pass it, and then credits roll, ding, 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 ding. Maybe that's the alternate ending. That's the one I would have went with. Look, guys, I'm biased, okay? I'm not a big Laurie Strode fanatic, okay? I know some of you guys are. I know this was the ending that you guys wanted. We had that though, right? She did that in H2O. She chopped off his head. So what, did she get it again? And let's top that and let's throw him in a meat grinder? I don't know. I'm bitching. But that was the one thing that irked the hell out of me. I was just like, oh God. First off, and a lot of you guys complained about this too to me, that he can take on an entire town of Haddonfield at the end, you know, with bats and irons and everything. But old Granny's gonna take him out in a heartbeat. You know, that's the one thing that does annoy me about this movie, okay? Outside of that, we can push that aside now. I loved everything that happened before the big showdown. I even liked that Myers wasn't in the movie as much. And if you really think about that, think back to Halloween 2018 and Halloween Kills. Yeah, Halloween 2018 was getting Laurie and Michael together, but it was still showing how much of a force Myers was. And then in Kills, like, how do you top Kills? That was a Myers movie, okay? That was his show. He literally took out a big portion of Haddonfield in the streets. Come on, he let them even take the first punch and just completely slayed, cooked fools, whipped ass. This movie, I think, covered its bases because what they did was they set up that, hey, this is 4 years later. This is a guy that took quite a beating, even though he won at the end of Halloween Kills. So, supernatural or not, he'd still be pretty jacked up. And it was kind of one of those things, kind of like in The Mummy or in Hellraiser, where Corey eventually had to find him somebody to kill, and when Myers killed the person, it was like he got stronger. So it's like he had to keep bringing him people to make Myers stronger. But I'm also getting ahead of myself. I wanted to talk about the fan divide that I knew this movie would have, and I'm seeing it all over my comments. And by the way, guys, inching close to 10,000 views as we speak right now on the non-spoiler review. Thank you so much for that. But I'm just loving the comments because half of you guys are saying, I hated this movie. This was the worst thing I've ever seen. I can't stand it. And then the other, maybe not even half of you are saying, I really liked it. I like what they were going for here. I like the new direction. And I asked one of my subscribers here, Mikey Henson, I said, Mike, can I use your quote? Because he is a certain demographic. He is the ones that, I'm not speaking for Mikey, although I don't think Mikey liked this movie, okay? Reading what he wrote here, he says, man, they showed Myers for maybe, 30 minutes of the whole movie. I'm pissed, bro. The Corey stuff wasn't interesting. Why did Myers allow him to roam around him? I think Green tweaked the movie way too much. The final battle wasn't fulfilling. I agree with him on that. Worst one out of the three. Half of you guys, if not more, I guarantee you agree with every word he just said. And the one thing that he really said that I think drives it home here is that the Corey stuff wasn't interesting. Why did Myers allow him to roam around him? That's it right there. Let's jump right into it. Corey. That is the reason why you didn't like this movie. You, right there, watching this review right now, that didn't like this movie. More than likely, you didn't like it because you didn't care about Corey. I'm not here for Corey. I don't want to watch the Corey movie. I want to watch a movie about Michael Myers versus Laurie Strode. And you didn't get that, did you? I'm sorry you didn't. You got a different movie. You were duped, right? Given the old bait and switch. And I guess if you went in with those expectations, then you probably left unhappy. But I have to say, they did kind of prepare us for this. If you followed the behind the scenes, you know, and most of us don't do that, okay? Us Halloween YouTubers, we get all the facts, you know, the behind the scenes stuff, but, you know, regular moviegoers, they probably don't scratch the surface that much. So maybe you're right. Maybe you should have been given more information. Although I like going into a movie not knowing that a major big surprise is coming at us. I mean, think about those people back in, 1982, 40 years ago, who went into Halloween 3 and expected a Myers movie and there was no Myers whatsoever. Can you imagine how upset, how pissed off people must have been back in 1982, me being one of them? This was at least a meet in the middle. You know, meet me halfway, as Kenny Loggins would say. This movie did that. It did give you Myers. Myers was a part of the plot. You know, they still managed to fit the Myers and Laurie Strode saga somehow in this movie, making Laurie Strode a major part of the movie. You know, she took Corey under her wing. I have to applaud them for being able to pull off something like that. Jumping back to the beginning of this movie, I literally was sitting next to this guy and I told him the opening logos, the intro to these movies, that music always, it sent chills down my spine. And like almost immediately after that, the movie started and we heard like this radio DJ and it was completely different. And I was like, whoa, this is different. We had this really moody music back in Kills in 2018. Not this time. This time it was like, whoa, this is gonna be a different ride. Could this be a comedy? What could happen here? And then we're introduced to Corey, and he gets the I guess like a Scream inspired intro, you know, where you have this whole sequence that takes place in 2019, and he's babysitting, and this horrible accident happens. You know, you think that Myers might be in the house because the door ends up being propped open. And so you don't know what's about to happen. And it's this kid that he's babysitting has an accident and he falls down the stairs. Right after that, boom, opening titles. And what do those opening titles look like? Dun, 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 dun. Although this doesn't have that music, but they used the font that they used in Halloween 3, even the color. Right away, they were telling the audience, okay guys, most of you are Halloween fans, so you probably recognize what this font is. This is Halloween 3, so here's a big hint as to what is in store for the next hour and a half. This is not going to be your normal Halloween movie. We've kind of covered that ground with the previous two movies. We're still telling the story, but let's have some fun. Let's actually give you more of a Halloween-inspired story, but not full on. Let's introduce some new territory here, bring in this character Corey, and really just kind of cover ground. Maybe instead of approaching the story from the front, let's go from the side, from a different character's point of view. And that's kind of what this movie did. And before I go any further on the Corey stuff, guys, think back. I mean, we've had what? This is 13 movies in the franchise. Just about every movie outside of Halloween 3 is a straightforward Haddonfield Halloween movie, Michael Myers on the loose, killing people one by one. After so many movies, why not try something different again and maybe go down a different path? And I think the big thing that might have shot themselves in the foot is making this the third part of a trilogy. So it does feel kind of shoehorned in, whereas this could have been the next story after this trilogy. Kind of a way to massage in a Haddonfield universe story with a little bit of Myers, but not fully. I think if they would have done that, maybe it would have been accepted more. And that's why I say down the road, maybe years down the road, maybe even a decade, this movie will be accepted more because it won't be packaged together with a trilogy as much as it is right now, as it should be. I think people, when they're looking at their 13 movies instead of their 3 movies, it'll be easier to pull that one out of the stack and watch it for what it is. But this young actor, Rowan Campbell, who played Corey, I mean, can you imagine? You're gonna come into this third part of a trilogy and we're gonna make the movie rest on your shoulders. And by the way, Halloween fans are the most toxic fucking horror fans you can possibly imagine. Good luck. And I think I have a handbook here somewhere. I can't find it. Yeah, I left the handbook at home, so you got this, right? I wouldn't want that job. I mean, that kid, he must have a lot of pressure on him right now. I gotta say, he carried this thing great. I loved the story that they were doing here. If you would have separated this outside of Halloween, I think it would have been accepted a lot more, because the idea of them going maybe a Christine route and having this character who's had this tragedy in his past and he hasn't had therapy to process it, and he ends up coming face to face with the ultimate evil, Michael Myers. And you have that scene where there's this transference, I guess, this shifting of powers to him from Myers, and you see in his eyes, you're not seeing any of Myers' visions, you're seeing his own past, his own trauma that he's had. But I like that it wasn't immediate, like he wasn't a Myers figure immediately. It was still kind of a gradual type of thing. He still could talk, he was still Corey, and it would kind of come in and out. I was loving this so much because it was so refreshing and it was so new and it felt like just this completely different horror movie. And I was just so behind this character. I was so interested. And that sequence where he's in I think the tow truck where he works, and you know, the bullies are after him. And it's like a complete homage to Christine. You have the oxyacetylene torch where he's burning the guy's mouth. I mean, it's perfect for a Halloween movie as it is. But really, this was kind of the copycat portion of the movie. And I thought that the whole movie would be like a copycat killer type of movie, but they spent like a good portion, like maybe the first half of the movie, just kind of setting up this story, setting up Corey's transformation. But going into this, I was kind of curious, like, what is it gonna be like having somebody else in Michael Myers' outfit? And I thought I was gonna be against it a lot more than I turned out to be. And I think just because he still had the Myers walk, you know, you still had the Myers mask, and there was a little extra there because you knew that it was Corey in that outfit. So you knew that this was a different person behind that. But I guess it was fun watching a young Myers, a 21-year-old, don the suit and do his thing. And I think he did Daddy proud, right? He did Daddy proud. And it's just really cool that the old Myers would come back into the picture, and he still does a good portion of the kill scenes along the way. Just very unique, you know, and stuff that I would have never dared think that they would attempt. And to me, it really just worked. And it was just fun. It was refreshing. I hadn't seen a horror movie like this in so long, and sure, it borrowed elements from other movies, but wow. It was like a jolt that I think the franchise might have needed, even though it was like at the wrong time because it was in a trilogy. Very strange. It was so good that I didn't want Corey to die. I wanted there to be this conclusion where maybe the powers would transfer to Corey for maybe another movie. I can kind of compare this to The Dark Knight Rises with what they did with Batman. You know, he went away. He didn't necessarily die, but you know, he disappeared, and we knew that there would be no more Bruce Wayne, and we see him at the very end. And that's kind of what I thought would have happened at the end of this movie. The old would go away and the new would come in, and you could have had more movies with Corey as the killer. Could have been cool. To the people that were saying that this isn't Halloween, it still had that Halloween DNA, you know? Another movie you can compare this to is Prometheus. You know, Prometheus, not alien, but it had that alien DNA. Same thing here. And you had those moments where Laurie was like looking out the window and she would see Corey standing there. And I remember the audience was just like, whoa, that's really cool. You know, there's a parallel there, you know, to the first movie. And there were a few moments like that. You know, you could see the darkness behind Corey's eyes. And I think there's a reason why they chose an actor that had dark eyes in this movie, you know, the blackest eyes. This character to me was just very captivating. And I knew going out of this, I was thinking, man, it's gonna be a shame because a lot of people are not going to be accepting of Corey because they're not here for that movie. They're here for a Michael Myers Halloween movie. Also, I talked about Allison in the spoiler-free review and how she was different in this movie. You know, this was 4 years later. This was like the beginning of a relationship, you know, and probably the most dangerous relationship because she's interested in this kid who is literally like turning into a killer. And Laurie Strode sees that. I like what they did with Laurie Strode. It's not like I hated Laurie Strode throughout this whole movie. I loved her every bit of the way, except for the ending. Hell, they didn't even have like the Laurie one-liners that I can't stand so much. The dialogue in this movie was much more accessible. It was better written, I think. This was Laurie Strode as a grandmother trying to protect her granddaughter, and even trying to help Corey, but telling him, you know, you can't see her. I'm trying to protect her. This is not safe. And you knew eventually it was going to come to a head. But just so many surprises along the way too, like that great scene at the pool. You know, I didn't even know at first, is Corey going to be wearing Myers' getup at that point? And no, it wasn't. Myers was actually in the scene. So you had both killers, and you see Corey in that alternate mask. And this was like his first like real premeditated kill. You know, he killed the homeless guy before, but that was more a reaction, whereas this was fully like planned out, you know, and he's a young pupil and he's scared, and Myers is just like there doing his thing. I don't think Myers like really knew how to handle Corey. Like, what the hell is this kid doing? So I kind of liked Myers in this movie, and I've always been the type that I don't need Myers all the way in my Halloween movie. Even in Kills, he wasn't in a lot of the movie. There's quite a big segment of Kills that is made up of the hospital, and you don't see Myers for a while. So I thought you still saw Myers quite a bit in this movie. It just wasn't the focal point. It was more about Corey, but Myers was equally important because he was kind of like the host to Corey. You know, Corey would not have become the killer if he didn't run into Myers, even though it was always there within him because of the trauma that he experienced before. So you could really, you know, bake your noodle just thinking about the psychology of this movie and how it relates to Myers and Corey and even Laurie Strode and just all this stuff going around. Very unique. Now, like I said at the beginning of this review, yeah, this movie is not perfect. I don't think they stuck the landing as far as where the character of Corey was gonna go at the end. Myers ends up killing him, and I think it was kind of all for nothing because that happened. But I think they needed to find a way to get Myers and Laurie to fight at the end of the movie. Now, I know they showed 2 different versions of this movie at the test screening, and I am hoping that there's an alternate version of that last act. And I'm sure it's between Laurie and Michael, but I wonder if there's a version where Myers wins. You know, that would be kind of cool. And I'm sure some of you might have seen the test screening. Maybe you let us know in the comments. I've also heard rumors that the Peacock version might be a different ending. I guess I'm sure that'll flow out here pretty soon. I'm sure it's not. It's probably the same version. It's a shame because I liked that story. I liked this Corey character so much, and I didn't want him to die. You know, I wanted to explore that more. I even thought that, yeah, she killed him, but maybe at the end of the movie, his eyes would open or something like that. Or it would just be implied that Corey is still alive and maybe, it could pass, the torch could pass to him in another movie. A lot of fans would have been pissed off by that because everybody wants Michael Myers to be the focal point of these types of movies. Could he become the new Michael Myers? That's a tall order, and I'm sure that David Gordon Green and company probably didn't want to write themselves into that hole. But, you know, we're right back to the end. The big fight between Michael Myers and Laurie Strode. I think she beats him too easy, even though they did try to show that this was a battle-torn Myers, and this isn't Myers in his prime fighting Laurie. So I get that. I'll cut him some slack there. But I just still think she took him down way too easy. She cuts his neck and then she cuts his wrist. And you know what? It's just, I love Myers so much that it hurts. It hurts watching him get beaten so badly. So that's why I said this is a personal preference. You might want Myers to die, as he probably should, but you know, he's an icon. And you don't want to see your icons die such a grisly death. Or maybe you do, I don't know. It's Laurie Strode. A lot of you guys love Laurie Strode to death, so maybe it was satisfying to you, but I just don't like all the flexing that Jamie Lee Curtis has done throughout this trilogy. You know, all the one-liners. And she doesn't really do it in this movie, to her credit. Like I said, Laurie Strode is good in this movie. I just didn't like the very ending of the movie. What's the proper way to do it? I don't know, maybe both of them die? I could think of 10 other endings that probably would have been more satisfying for me, than what we got. Showing Myers getting chewed up in a meat grinder. Anyway though guys, wow, this movie was a lot to pack in, and I love that about it. I love that this is a conversation piece. You could talk for days about this movie and you could get so many different opinions about the elements of this movie. And I really enjoyed it. So, can't get it out of my head. Can't wait to watch it on Peacock. I will be doing a commentary for it. So, anyway guys, let me know down in the comments, now that you've all seen it, what you thought of Halloween Ends. Do you see yourself maybe coming around to it if you don't like it this time? Let us know in the comments. Also, be sure to come over to Killer Flicks, where we talk horror all day and every day. On Fridays, we do Free for Fridays. Follow me at Drumdums on my socials. Support me on Patreon. Buy me a coffee. And guys, thank you so much for watching. Have a great day, and Drumdum out.